Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Tsunade raised Naruto to be the strongest ninja, part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Flashback end. You got everything packed and ready to go? She asked as her son looked over his shoulder with a smile before nodding and standing up, draping his bag over his shoulder. Yeah, I double-checked everything to make sure. Everything not mainly important is in the main scroll. I did though decide to keep the scroll keeping everything from my birth parents' house as well as the scrolls listing my powers, he said as while she should have saved the scroll containing everything from Kushina and Minato's house for his birthday she had instead given it to him after he had passed all of her, Jiraiya's and Yamamoto's tests. He had passed hers by showing the extent of his master over his fruit's power, his medical ninjutsu skills, and his ability to summon the slugs. He passed Jiraiya's by showing off his hockey skills, elemental ninjutsu, and the ability to summon the toads. And finally he had passed Yamamoto's tests by using all 11 stances of the Shigure Soin Ryu that he had shown Naruto as well as his ability to summon water from thin air. While he might not have all of his fruit's powers or his hockey mastered, they were at a level where they felt he could easily defend himself. All in all, over in the past 3 years he was more than at the level of a Chunin due to their intense training over the years. That's smart for now, but once we get to Konoha, Jiraiya is going to put it in a sealed safe that opens only to your blood and chakra to keep it safe since that scroll has the instructions for the Hiraishin inside it. Plus I don't want your fruit's powers being leaked somehow, he nodded and looked around the room once more. You know I'm going to miss this place considering how I've lived here my whole life so far, he said as Tsunade patted his back with a smile. I know what you mean is I've learned to like this place, but the main Senju compound in Konoha isn't too different from here, she said before he nodded and followed her out of the room and towards the front door of the compound where Jiraiya, Shizune, Yamamoto, and Mabui were waiting for them. Did you make sure you didn't forget anything, Naruto-sama? She asked with a smile as Tsunade, as well as the other adults, hid their smirks as Naruto blushed slightly as Mabui moved closer to him. She knew her son well enough to know that puberty had hit him hard around 14 or so, and since then he had noticed Mabui as a girl, which they figured would happen sooner or later given how much she hugged on him and how much she had blossomed over the last few years. In the past 3 years Mabui had grown some curves that came in the form of a rather full rear, from Tsunade had seen while they were in the hot springs, as well as a developing chest that was easily going on E-cup. All in all they all had been trying to get the two kids together since it was clear Mabui had strong feelings for Naruto besides devotion, and Naruto, while a bit dense, had some budding feelings for her. Why yeah. Sorry it took so long, Mabui-chan, he said as he rubbed the back of his neck with a chuckle as Mabui blushed, like she always did, at the addition of chan to her name ever since he started adding it a year or two back. It is fine, Naruto-sama, I'm just excited to finally visit Konoha after all these years with you, she said with a smile as she hugged his arm, making Naruto blush darker before Jiraiya chuckled and clapped his hands. Well, love birds, let's get a move on. Sensei is waiting for us to arrive this afternoon and we can't delay it as the academy graduation test is tomorrow, Jiraiya said as he ignored the glare from the 3 women around him. Yeah, I'm excited to see Konoha as well since I've never visited it before, Yamamoto said as he smiled, excited to go along as since he wasn't a shinobi or registered as one in Kiri he could go wherever he wanted as long as they were willing to allow him in. Okay, yeah, come on kids, Konoha isn't that far away so we won't be traveling long, but still the sooner we arrive the more time we have to get settled in, Tsunade said as everyone nodded and followed her lead out of town and towards the direction of Konoha. A few hours later, Naruto, As they walked up to the gates of Konoha, couldn't help but feel a bit overwhelmed from it all, and the large city behind the gates as they walked in didn't help. Whoa, this place is huge, he muttered as Yamamoto let a whistle. You can say that again, he said before Tsunade smiled at the figure ahead of them. 16 years and you still look old as ever, sensei, she said as crossed her arms under her chest with a smile as she and Jiraiya stared down their elder sensei. It's great to see you too, Tsunade, as well as you, Jiraiya, Hiruzen said as he smiled, happy to have his two students back as well as have Naruto finally home, knowing from just one look the boy was something special. For the entire walk, from the gates the village to the Hokage's main office, both Naruto and Mabui were amazed by the size of the city. Although it was more so Naruto than Mabui is, unlike her with her past in Kumo, this was the first time he had ever been in a big city. Wow, this place really is huge, Naruto commented again as he looked out from the window of the Hokage's office and took in the view. Well, Konoha is the most populated of the 5 great ninja villages, so the size is expected, Tsunade said as she patted her son on the back. Now come sit down, as the sooner we get this over with the sooner we can head to the compound and get things unpacked, his mom chided him with a smirk as he chuckled and nodded, sitting down next to Mabui. I'm glad though you are interested in your new home, and I'll try and keep this quick so you may get settled down and maybe look around a bit before tomorrow, the third Hokage, who had previously insisted to just be called Hiruzen by both him and Mabui, said as Naruto nodded. So before anything, I figure everyone in the room isn't left in the dark regarding topics? Hiruzen asked as Tsunade nodded. I told everyone here everything from Naruto's powers to his situation as Jinchuriki, and both Mabui and Yamamoto have sworn not to tell, either out of not wanting to endanger Naruto or because it isn't their place to tell, she said as Mabui was incredibly serious about not doing anything to endanger Naruto, and Yamamoto decided it wasn't his place to tell anyone something that wasn't regarding to him personally. Good, and you don't have to worry about your sensei since the person I have in mind will be informed of his status as Jinchuriki. If they are to know about your fruit's power is up to you, Tsunade, Hiruzen said, looking towards Tsunade, who nodded. If this is all, then I think it's about time we get settled into the Senju compound, Tsunade said as she stood up before Hiruzen stood up as well with a smile. Yes, I bet you both are excited for the test tomorrow, and I personally will be watching with everyone else here, Hiruzen said, tapping the crystal ball on his desk as Naruto figured his mom and the others wouldn't pass up the chance to watch and see how he did tomorrow. Though before you all rush off, Jiraiya, can I speak alone with you and Tsunade for a moment? Hiruzen asked, making Tsunade frown slightly, although she expected this from the start. Sure, Shizune can guide them home, as I'm sure my loving son will be more than happy to help his mom unpack everything, Tsunade teased as she playfully pinched Naruto's cheek with a smirk. Yeah, I got it, Mom. I know how much you hate stuff like that, Naruto said with a chuckle before his mom ruffled his hair and pulled him in for a hug that he returned. I shouldn't be long. Jiraiya and I will come the second we are done, she said as Naruto pulled away with a nod before everyone else followed Shizune out of the room, the doors closing behind them. So what is it that you wanted to talk about that you decided not to let me walk with my son to our new house together? Tsunade asked, crossing her arms under her chest with a frown, as to her this was a special event. It is important, otherwise I wouldn't have held you back, and I am sorry, but it does involve Naruto in a way, Hiruzen said as he signaled for the Anbu to leave and motioned for them to sit, Jiraiya sitting down first before he looked towards Tsunade, who sighed and sat in the chair next to him. Since you've been away, there was an event where the Uchiha clan tried to usurp control over the village due to the tensions and distrust towards them that followed after the Kyuubi attack. Recently things have calmed down after the coup was ended. Before it started with the help of Itachi Uchiha and a few other loyal Uchiha killing only those involved in it, Hiruzen said as Tsunade frowned, not particularly having any dislike towards the Uchiha since unlike her great-uncle Tobirama she more was neutral to them. I tell you this because it requires Naruto to be careful as some Uchiha, who know why the others were killed, are still harboring grudges. Another reason is because I have decided to give him a loyal and skilled Uchiha as his sensei when he and Mabui pass their test to ensure their safety from other Uchiha's interests. Hiruzen said, thankful that his student seemed to accept it as she nodded. So is this Itachi his teacher, or do you have someone else capable in mind? Tsunade asked, as if her sensei said it was someone loyal and skilled, it was someone to be trusted. No, Itachi right now is busy acting as a spy for my network after he willingly took the public image of an unstable murderer. He is working to infiltrate a dangerous organization that I picked up on after I received news that Orochimaru joined it, Jiraiya said, as beside training Naruto and Mabui he had been incredibly busy with his spy network, even more so after Sensei had sent Itachi to him. Jiraiya is right. Itachi is not available at this moment, but I assure you they are very capable, but it's best to wait until tomorrow to talk more, as they will be able to answer any question you have after they meet with Naruto and Mabui, Hiruzen said before Tsunade nodded and stood up. Good, because I need to get to the house so I can relax after the journey here with my son and give him some last bit of advice before tomorrow, she said as Hiruzen chuckled and nodded, completely understanding how she wanted to spend time with her son. Go on ahead, Tsunade. I have a few things left to talk to Sensei about, mainly my spy network, so you go on ahead and get home, Jiraiya said as Tsunade wasted no time leaving, somewhat making Jiraiya sigh as he didn't know what to suspect, especially with tomorrow to look forward to. Next day, Naruto felt a bit nervous as he and Mabui made their way towards the academy. He wasn't nervous that they wouldn't pass, as the last real spar they had with his mom, Jiraiya, and Yamamoto, they all had put Naruto and Mabui easily high chunin to mid jonin depending on the seriousness. He was more nervous of meeting everyone else since he and Mabui were new, only just arriving on the final test day. The advice his mom gave him last night of not worrying too much about the others and mainly focusing on passing was helping him not worry too much. Naruto-sama, are you okay? Mabui asked as she snapped him out of his thoughts, making him look over to her as she smiled back at him. Even she had donned a change of outfit for today, switching to an olive-colored sleeveless vest with mesh armor underneath that was visible a bit due to the low-ish neckline of the vest, and an olive short-sleeve jacket over it that bore the Senju symbol on one shoulder and Kumo's symbol on the other. Other than that, she wore dark gray knee-length skirt that allowed her to still move around but also look dignified. She had even let her light gray hair hang down freely instead of the bun she normally kept it in, which he had to say looked great on her. Yeah, I'm good, Mabui-chan. Just a bit nervous, but it'll pass, he said as she nodded before they both entered the academy and were greeted by a man who was seemingly waiting for him. Ah, you two must be Naruto and Mabui, right? The man asked as the two of them nodded. Great. My name is Iruka Yumino. I was made aware of your situation by Lord Hokage and I am excited to see your skill, Iruka said as Naruto nodded with a chuckle. I'm excited to pass and get to start helping out, Naruto said with a smile as Mabui nodded, making Iruka chuckle and motion for them to follow. The tests are going to begin in 5 or so minutes, but I need to arrive there early to keep things calm, so you two came at the best time for me to introduce you all to the others, Iruka said as they continued to follow him until he stopped in front of one classroom that was rather loud until he burst open the door. Okay, everybody quiet down. I have 2 last-minute students that I need to introduce. Iruka yelled as the class almost instantly quieted down, allowing him to motion for them to enter. Everyone, I would like to introduce Naruto, Senju and Mabui. They will be joining us for the graduation exam as they have been traveling around and only just returned to Konoha, Iruka said as Naruto smiled and waved to them slightly as Mabui bowed slightly. To make things easier, all of them will be in their Shippuden outfits, only with Sakura having longer hair and Sasuke with his the last Naruto the movie outfit minus the poncho and head wrap. Wait, Senju. As in one of the main founding clans of Konoha Senju? Does that mean you are related to Tsunade? Senju? One student asked as Naruto nodded. Yeah, she's my mom. She raised me outside of Konoha but decided to return once I was of graduating age, he said as the class started to get noisy as everyone was either trying to ask him questions or were talking amongst themselves about him. Okay, that's enough. Iruka yelled over the commotion only for them to continue to be noisy, making a tick mark appear on his forehead. I said quiet. Iruka yelled, his head seemingly growing to enhance his voice, which quickly got the class to be quiet. And what about the gorgeous woman next to him? Why does she have Kumo and the Senju symbol on her? One boy with a rather large dog next to him asked with a smirk that made Naruto glare a bit, although he was a bit confused why. I am indebted to the work of the Senjus for saving my life, and I bear Kumo's symbol as that is my birth land that my uncle currently leads over his cage. I am here as a representative and to serve by Naruto-sama's side, Mabui said, making Naruto groan inwardly as he didn't want her to use Sama for him around others but figured she would end up using it. If he wasn't able to stop her from using it over the years, he doubted he could get her to stop at all. And before any of you start, Mabui's situation has been approved by the Hokage. Now everybody stay settled as the exam will be starting in a few minutes, Iruka said, silencing various questions before he motioned for both of them to go on and sit down. Here, you can come sit down next to me, sweetie, the dog boy said as he smirked and licked his lips before Mabui walked right past him, seemingly ignoring him and leaving him shocked before Mabui looked back and smiled at Naruto. Naruto-sama, I found us 2 seats, Mabui said as Naruto chuckled and followed her up the steps past the dog boy and sat down on the middle seat with Mabui sitting next to him. Oi, what's the big idea? Don't you know who I am? The dog boy yelled, planting his foot on top of the desk in front of Naruto, making him sigh as he looked up at him. No, we don't. We literally just arrived at the village yesterday, Naruto said, making the boy falter a bit as Naruto slipped out the sword sheath from his belt and set the sword on his desk next to him due to it being awkward to sit down with it on his waist. Also, what is up with you? Mabui doesn't want to sit next to you, so just let it go, he said before a boy with circular dark glasses pulled the dog boy back with a sigh. Kiba, please stop before you cause a dangerous incident. Please excuse him, he gets excited. My name is Shino Aburame, Shino said as Kiba grumbled and sat back down at his seat a few rows down next to a pale-eyed girl who continuously snuck peeks up at Mabui before looking away whenever Mabui noticed. It's fine, not like I'm angry, just confused, he said before Shino nodded and went to sit down before a few moments later someone else stood up from further up front and started walking up towards them. The boy had black hair and onyx eyes that already seemed to be glaring slightly, although that more seemed to be his resting face at him before stopping in front of his desk. Senju, do you actually know how to use that sword? The boy asked as Naruto looked up at him with a bit of a raised eyebrow before nodding. I have a name besides my clan's name, it's Naruto. And yes, I do know how to use it. I was trained for a good number of years to use it well, Naruto told him, not quite sensing any real animosity in his tone but definitely felt the guy was a bit rough around the edges. It was probably tied to how he heard from Jiraiya that half of the Uchiha were killed by a man named Itachi. He didn't know why Itachi did such a thing, but it made sense it affected some Uchiha around. We'll have to see about that. I'm interested to see your style, Sasuke said as he reached behind him and moved the Chikudo behind his back so he could see it more clearly. I guess we can spar a bit, always up for a challenge, Naruto told him, getting Sasuke to look him over before turning away without another word, confusing Naruto before he heard a sigh above him as someone walked down the steps of the classroom. Sorry about my brother. His social skills are a bit poor and he's guarded. He isn't as bad as he seems. I think, a girl said as Naruto turned to look at her. The girl was rather slender and petite. Her hair onyx black hair was shoulder length with a part of it tucked behind her right ear with a long narrow ponytail hanging behind her while her eyes, also onyx black, were behind a pair of red glasses. Her outfit was a two-tone blue kipao-style top that went a bit past her hip with a slit up to her hip and a regular triangle cut out on the chest to separate the blue tone of the top part from the light blue of the lower part along with two darker blue arm bands on her arms. Under that was a pair of black shorts with a tool pouch on her left leg and a pair of almost knee-high black sandals. He was also quick to notice a Tonto behind her. My name is Sarada Uchiha. Nice to meet you Naruto, she introduced, holding her hand out to him with a smile before he shook it with a smile of his own. Nice to meet you too, but don't worry, I won't let it get to me, Naruto assured her, getting a nod from her before she walked off to her seat behind him. Okay everybody sit back down. The exam is starting, the other teacher said as Iruka stood up and picked up a stack of papers. The graduation exams is divided into three main parts: written, accuracy, and physical. The written is simple, fill out the test to the best of your abilities and when you are done flip it over. Accuracy, once this is done, will deal with how well you can hit a target with a variety of tools. And physical will be how well you can use the three staple jutsu of any ninja and at least two elemental jutsu to prove you at least have a grasp of control over your chakra, Iruka said as he had went around and handed out the tests as Naruto inwardly groaned but picked up the pencil. Tests might not be his thing but his mom at least ensured he wasn't an idiot with all the lessons she and Shizune had given him. All I have to do is get through this first part and the rest should be smooth sailing and the interesting parts will come, he thought as he quickly got started. Hokage's office. Well, so far we can't see much because it's only a written test, but that Inuzuka boy is quickly starting to butt heads over Mabui. I wonder if this will help Naruto get with her faster, Jiraiya said with a smirk as he started jotting down some notes before quickly stopping as Tsunade's glare sent a shiver down his spine. Don't take notes on my son for your perverted books. Though I do find this situation cute for them, Tsunade said as Jiraiya quickly nodded and put away his notepad out of fear of being slugged by her. Thankfully the written portion never takes that long, so we should be seeing the other parts soon, Hiruzen said as he let out smoke from his pipe. I too am excited to see how well young Naruto and Mabui do and what elemental jutsus they show off to the instructors, Hiruzen added as he looked towards Tsunade who merely smirked. Well, Mabui has a few lightning with Naruto being all water, but Yamamoto taught him a few that will make things interesting, Tsunade said as the smiling swordsman in the room nodded. Now I'm looking forward to it even more, Hiruzen said as he turned back to the crystal ball atop his desk. Academy. Naruto groaned as the test had finished and they had all been brought out to the training field behind the academy where numerous targets had been lined up with a large assortment of ninja tools lying on tables nearby to use. The next portion goes as follows. You will test your accuracy with these targets and a total of 10 tools of your choice. Your score starts at 100 and for each bullseye no points are deducted, but the further the ring out you hit the more points you lose. Mizuki, the other teacher that he had learned his name from a boy named Shikamaru, said as he motioned towards the tables. You can use kunai, senbon, or even all shuriken if you want, but you must use at least 10 and there is no extra credit for the difficulty of tool or using more than 10, so use what is best for you and will ensure you do not miss, Iruka added as one by one they guided each student to a table with a target across from them. Other Chunin arrived to help take score of the students to speed up the process while Naruto looked over the table. Please Senju-san, pick whatever tools work the best for you, the random Chunin said as Naruto nodded and picked up 5 Senbon, as they were what Shizune had taught him with, and 5 kunai which were the basic tools. So I just have to hit the target and aim for the center right? Naruto asked as he lined up with the target that was several yards away, holding the Senbon in between his fingers of his closed fist. Yes, but in between each shot the tool must be removed for the kunai due to the small size of the bullseye, the Chunin said as Naruto nodded and fired the first barrage of 5 shots, all perfectly hitting the center in a tight grouping. Senbon were the easiest for him to use due to his steady surgical hand and training for several years. Perfect grouping, amazing job. Not many people actually succeed with Senbon, as we like to call them, the genin killers, as when others try to use them their scores are dropped due to failures. I think one other student last year is the only one to succeed with them, the Chunin said as Naruto chuckled as the Senbon were removed. Well, they are my main projectile. Kunai though are good as well, Naruto said as one by one he fired each of the 5 kunai at the target, easily hitting the mark as compared to Jiraiya's fast-moving clones. He was sure he could hit these with his eyes closed. Not that he'd do that for this test. Perfect score Senju-san. Amazing job, the Chunin said as he finished jotting down his score before nodding and walking off. Naruto-sama, I see you got perfect as well, Mabui said with a smile as she too had passed this version quite fast, as with the amount of people teaching them they were meant to be well-rounded. It's a decent test with the distance of the target, but it was pretty easy, though we might be a bit biased due to how Jiraiya used to train our marksmanship, Naruto said with a chuckle as he and Mabui moved over to a nearby bench to sit down and wait for the others to finish up, as he was looking forward to the next and final portion of the test. Do you already have the jutsu you wish to reveal to pass? Mabui asked with a smile, happy to be so close to being able to finally stand beside him as a shinobi and protect and fight with him. I have a few in mind, one for sure that I am going to use, as Yamamoto said it would shock some people, Naruto said with a smirk as Mabui giggled slightly, already having an idea of what jutsu he was talking about before he looked over to her. What about you? Any ideas of which ones you will use? I doubt you'll show them the big guns though, he said as Mabui smiled and shrugged her shoulders slightly. I'll be able to decide easier when it is time, which looks like it is now, Mabui said as Iruka was now calling for them to group back up. Okay, with that the second portion is finished. Now stay together, as the net part requires us to make our way the arena in town, since we cannot be firing off elemental jutsu safely around here, especially with some earth-style users amongst you all, Iruka said as they all started to leave the academy. So Iruka-sensei, will we be given our headbands at the arena, or will we have to wait a day to go over the results? Naruto asked as he and Mabui moved up to the front so they could ask. After everyone is done, we will be moving back to the academy to officially announce the results and hand out headbands one by one. Team placement though is tomorrow, as the Hokage has to go over the students that passed with the available jonin to see who would benefit from which jonin, Iruka said as Naruto nodded, and they continued to follow Iruka until they arrived at the large arena. This arena is mainly used for the Chunin exams whenever they are set to be hosted in Konoha. One by one you all will be called out to show off the 3 staple jutsu and at least 2 elemental jutsu to show you can handle using jutsu. You may show more to make up for points lost in the test and accuracy portion, but we only accept 1 extra. You gain points for the show of control over, Iruka said as Mizuki let out a whistle. Everybody make your way to the waiting room on the 2nd floor. When the Chunin waiting there calls out your name, you may make your way down. We'll be starting with Shino Aburame and be moving alphabetically from there, with Mabui being grouped with the Senju name, Mizuki said as they had been a bit confused by Mabui's lack of clan name. not knowing it was a Kumo tradition for the family of Kage to abandon any clan name to prove devotion to serving as Kage along with the name of A. Mabui though, at the thought of having Senju as her clan name, blushed at what it brought in her mind before Naruto snapped her out of her thoughts to allow her to follow the rest to the waiting room. One by one students came and went for their tests, Naruto mainly relaxing beside Mabui as they patiently waited for their turn. So Senju, what affinity do you and the Kumo girl have? Sasuke asked from his seat at the far wall behind them. You'll have to wait and see for when we use them around others. Part of being a ninja is keeping skills hidden to get the upper hand on opponents, Naruto said as with all of his abilities, from his fruit and haki to his status as a Jinchuriki he had been raised to never reveal anything until there was a time he had to. Sasuke, despite the fact that he walked away, didn't really seem annoyed. If anything he seemed like he liked the answer, a look over to Sarada, who merely shrugged which was a sign that it wasn't anything bad. Next up is Mabui Senju, please make your way to the arena for your test, the Chunin said as Mabui smiled and stood up. Wish me luck Naruto-sama, she said as he smiled up at her. I know you'll do great so knock them dead, he said before she nodded and walked off to start her test. Hokage's office. Tsunade grew more excited as Mabui had passed with flying colors, meaning her son was next and so far he had been doing perfectly and she doubted he'd do anything but perfect on this next part as well. Though just before he was called down a knock came at the door behind them. Ah, you are just in time, please come in, Hiruzen said as he sensed the chakra of the person behind the door. Oh good, I feared I might have missed the last portion, a woman said as she entered the room. The woman was easily the same age as Shizune with a slim and toned figure with long brown hair that flowed freely with two bangs framing her face, her headband slightly behind covered by the hair that covered her forehead. She had onyx eyes with a mole under her right eye. Her outfit consisted of a high-collar long-sleeved purple shirt with a flak jacket over it and a pair of dark blue form-fitting pants that had a tool pouch strapped onto her right leg and a pair of blue sandals to finish it off. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Shizune, and Yamamoto. I would like you to meet Izumi Uchiha, the Jonin I have picked for Naruto's sensei, Hiruzen said as Izumi bowed to them. It is an honor that I was chosen to be his sensei and don't worry, I know of his situation as Jinchuriki as well as how he is adopted, Izumi said with a smile as Tsunade looked her over. She didn't feel anything off about the Uchiha in front of her, so her instincts told her she was fine, but she'd still wait a bit to fully accept her. And how do you know of his adoptions, as not many are privy to that info, Tsunade said as Izumi rubbed the back of her head with a chuckle. Well, Makoto Uchiha was best friends with Kushina and she knew of the situation of you being Kushina, child's godmother, as well as what name Kushina had in mind. But don't worry, Makoto and I have already been told by Lord Hokage not to mention anything, Izumi said as Tsunade nodded, figuring Makoto would want to see Naruto sometime soon with her being Kushina's best friend and all. Okay, enough chatting. Naruto is about to start, Jiraiya said as he pulled up a chair for Izumi next to Tsunade and they all sat back down, excited to see Naruto pass the final portion. Arena. Naruto smiled as he stood in front of Iruka, Mizuki, and another Chunin as they sat behind a table near the edge of the arena. Okay, first you will start with the three staples, a clone, Kawarami, and a henge. How many clones you make is up to you, but one is the minimum and you may henge into anyone you wish as long as they are well known, Iruka said as Naruto nodded. The clones were simple to make, as he created 3 with a one-handed hand seal. He chose to make simple clones and not shadow clones as those were for different occasions. That in using simple clones helped his control since in the beginning they were almost impossible for him to make due to the size of his reserves. Nice work on the clones, the look incredibly solid and well detailed, Mizuki commented as they jotted down his score. Onto the Kawarami please. We have scattered logs and other things around for you to swap with, so it shouldn't be a problem, he added as Naruto nodded before the other Chunin threw a paint bomb at him, allowing him to substitute with a log to show that he was capable of swapping places. Good reflexes and nice smooth Kawarami. Now please return and show us a henge, Iruka said as Naruto swapped with the log again with a smile and quickly thought over who to change into before deciding and transformed with a puff of smoke. As the smoke died down, he had decided to henge into his mother as she was the person he knew the best, since she was his mom. Is this good enough? Naruto asked, perfectly emulating her voice before he crossed his arms with a smirk, unaware of the proud smile from his mom as she watched as he had gotten her appearance perfect. Ah, Lady Tsunade, makes sense you'd choose your mom and it is very well done. Even the voice is indistinguishable from when I heard her at the briefing Lord Hokage gave about her and Lord Jiraiya returning to the village earlier today, Iruka said as they finished jotting down the scores for the 3 staple jutsus. Now you may lower the henges. Now it is time for your 2 elemental jutsu, Mizuki said as Naruto dispelled the henge. Before you start we need to know your affinities so we can be ready to score you correctly on the element you use, Iruka said while Naruto nodded with a smile. I have water as my main and wind as a sub-affinity. I will though be showing you mainly water as it fits my style better, Naruto said as the 3 Chunin nodded and Iruka motioned for him to begin. Naruto smiled as he ran through the 3 simple hand signs for the first one before he took a deep breath and aimed his towards a nearby tree, putting his hand in front of his mouth in the shape of a circle made with his fingers. Water style. Water trumpet. He yelled as he fired out a large jet of water that crashed into and destroyed the tree it was aimed at. Very nice job. Quickly molded the water and the pressure of it was very good. A definite pass. Now please move on to the next, Iruka said as Naruto smiled, proud of how well he did. This next one was something Yamamoto had taught him as a stable to being a swordsman. The seals were simple as he took in a deep breath before steadily letting out a stream of mist that slowly started to fill the entire arena. Hokage's office. Oh my, you taught Naruto hiding in mist. Isn't that something only passed really around to swordsmen of Kiri? Izumi asked as Yamamoto nodded, smiling as he saw the consistency of Naruto's mist. Yup, but I figured he was my student and with his affinity towards water he is a natural with it. His mist is even better than mine due to how well he can draw forth water, Yamamoto said before Tsunade shushed them. Quiet. I want to see my baby pass, Tsunade said as they both nodded with a chuckle and turned back towards the scene. Arena. Whoa. This is definitely surprising. You never see this technique really outside of Kiri, Iruka said as he couldn't see even 2 inches in front of him and his echolocation jutsu was messing up due to all the chakra in the mist. Yeah, the teacher I had teaching me how to wield my sword taught it to me. He said I could find use of it with my sword style, Naruto said, his voice bouncing around through the mist, disorienting the 3 Chunin as they couldn't tell where he was. Please dispel the mist as we can't write your score with it up, Mizuki said as Naruto chuckled, slightly making them tense at the tone the mist made it sound. Got it. Wind style. Great breakthrough, Naruto said before a powerful gust of wind blew the mist out of the arena, dispelling it as since it was made by his chakra his wind would be able to blow it away without it coming back. The mist was very impressive and a definite pass. Plus the added wind jutsu was of passing quality as well and shows you can use wind alongside water, Iruka said as they finished up jotting down the scores. It is safe to say you have passed this last portion of the test. Your final results will be revealed when everyone is finished and we head back to the academy, Iruka added as Naruto smiled and left the arena, excited to get his headband after all of this. Naruto-sama, how do you think you did? Mabui asked as she had seemingly been standing and waiting for him to return. I feel I did really good, but we'll have to wait and see when the scores are announced, Naruto said as all they had to do was wait now. Thankfully there weren't too many others after him as they were able to return to the academy by the time the sun had just barely went past halfway through the sky. The classroom, after the teachers had left, was buzzing with noise and talking as others talked amongst themselves, wondering what ranking they got, if they had been good enough to pass, or making guesses of what teams they all would be on. So, how do you think you did? Choji, if he remembered the boy's name correctly, asked as he snacked on some chips that he seemingly had in his bag. I feel I did really good, but we'll see, Naruto said as after they returned to the classroom Shikamaru, a lazy Nara, Choji, Shino, a girl named Ino, and Sarada from earlier had all chosen to sit around him and Mabui. Shikamaru had originally sat down near him as he claimed it was quiet around him, and Shino, Choji, and Ino had all followed suit. Shino was a quiet boy but nice when he did talk. Choji mainly snacked and talked about how he was going to celebrate and at which restaurant. Ino, a childhood friend of Choji and Shikamaru, was a nice girl who, alongside Sarada, was the first girl to talk to Mabui and be friendly with her. Sarada seemed pretty friendly and nice, a stark contrast to her quiet brother who seemed to have a bit of a fan club surrounding him due to his cool and quiet charm, added on with the fact that he was the son of the head of the clan. Okay everyone, one by one Mizuki will read out your names and whether or not you passed. If you passed, then come down and get a headband. If you failed, then you can always try again next year, as there is nothing wrong with that, Iruka said as Mizuki cleared his throat, and one by one it was revealed if they passed or failed. Shino was the first of the group around Naruto to be called down with a pass, with Choji following suit. Shikamaru was next to pass before the names came around to S. Mabui Senju, pass, Mizuki said as Mabui smiled brightly and in her excitement hugged Naruto, who hugged her back before her face lit up dark and she quickly rushed off to get her headband. Ah, you two make such a cute couple, Ino teased as Naruto coughed into his fist. We aren't dating or anything, he said as Iruka talked with Mabui, congratulating her on passing. For now I'm guessing, Ino added with a teasing smirk before Sarada rolled her eyes. Don't tease him, Ino, not everyone is there for you to pair up, Sarada said, getting a playful smirk from Ino that showed this kind of thing might be the norm with the blonde before Mizuki saved Naruto by going to the next name. Naruto Senju, pass, Mizuki said as Naruto smiled and walked down the steps past Mabui, who was holding a Konoha and Kumo headband. He quickly figured probably sent it ahead of time for her to show he was still with her. Naruto Senju, I didn't doubt for 1 second that you would pass given how your mother undoubtedly trained you, but from now on you forge your own name. You may be a Senju, but now you are a Konoha ninja and will represent the village. I wish you luck and that you grow even more from this day on, Iruka said with a smile as he handed him a blue-clothed Konoha headband before they bowed towards each other. As Naruto sat back down, he held the headband in his hands with a smile, excited he had finally taken the first step on his path of being a ninja. Both he and Mabui were a bit silent as they waited through more names, Sarada eventually being called before Ino was one of the last names to be called due to her name being Yamanaka. He even was in a daze slightly through Iruka's farewell speech, as all he knew was that tomorrow he was to be assigned onto a team with a sensei where it would all really start. And he couldn't be more excited. As the next day rolled around, Naruto was still excited to learn who his sensei would be. He already knew his team was just going to be him and Mabui from what his mom told him, but his sensei was still a secret that his mom told him to be patient and wait until tomorrow to see. But as he sat in the classroom, waiting for the teachers to arrive, his excitement only grew more and more as each minute passed. He was finally going to become a full-fledged ninja with a sensei and everything. He'd be able to go on missions and make a difference with things and use his abilities to help. So who do you think is going to be on your team? Ino asked, snapping him out of his trance before he looked down to the new friends of his. Well, I know I am going to be on the same team as Naruto-sama, but I don't believe we will be getting a third team member, Mabui said, blushing a bit as Ino sent her a teasing smirk and nudged her with her elbow. Really? Though a two-man team makes sense considering you two have been trained together for a good while, Shikamaru said before letting out a tired sigh. I just hope my teammates aren't too troublesome, though knowing the Ino Shika Cho trio I'm going to have quite the bother, he grumbled out before Ino grew a tick mark on her forehead. What was that, Shikamaru? She growled out, making Shikamaru sigh again. Troublesome, he droned out as Choji and a few others around him chuckled while Ino glared at him half-heartedly. I know we won't get any actual exciting missions off the start, but I still am looking forward to this a lot. Being an official ninja on an actual team with a sensei is the real thing, Naruto said before sighing as Kiba moved up towards them. So babe, you think we are going to be on the same team? I certainly hope so, Kiba said with a grin while Mabui could only roll her eyes. Kiba, stop it. Mabui isn't interesting in your fleabag self and for sure isn't going to be on your team, Ino said as she shoved him away with a slight glare. Oh really? How do you know? Kiba asked as Naruto rose his hand. I talked with the Hokage the first day we got here and he said we would be on the same team since we've lived together for a good couple of years, Naruto said with a slight glare, annoyed again by the Inuzuka's attitude. Oh really? What makes you get special treatment? Kiba asked as Naruto rose an eyebrow at him. I don't get special treatment. My mom is his former student and wanted to meet him with us and he then told us, with how since me and Mabui have been living together for a good while, it makes sense to keep us together, Naruto said with a sigh before Shino nodded. He is right, Kiba, as they have been trained together while you have not. Hokage-sama would of course keep them together, Shino said as to him it was the only outcome that made sense. And if I was on your team I'd ask for a change for sure, Mabui said smirking as Kiba visibly became deflated before taking a step back. Whatever, maybe when we go on a mission together you'll see differently, babe, Kiba shrugged it off with a wink before Iruka walked in. Alright everyone, sit down so we can begin, the Chunin said after clearing his throat to get their attention, thankful that he didn't need to yell today. Today is a big day for all of you as today you will find out your teams, but before that I must say how proud I am of all of you making it this far, and from here on out you are no longer my students but my comrades of the Hidden Leaf Village, Iruka said, smiling as his class clapped at him with smiles. Okay, enough sappiness, let us get started, Iruka said before clearing his throat and quickly reading through the list of names and listing their team number and sensei. None of the names though were any Naruto recognized until they got to Team 7. Team 7 was Sasuke, Sakura, and a boy named Sai with their sensei as Kakashi Hatake. Team 8 ended up being Shino, Hinata, which was the name of the girl who kept nervously staring at Mabui, and Kiba with a woman named Kurenai Yuhi as their sensei. Team 9 was still active and Team 10 ended up being Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji with a man named Asuma Sarutobi as their sensei. And finally Naruto Senju and Mabui Senju, you two will be a team of your own, Team 11, with Izumi Uchiha as your sensei. Normally we don't allow two-member teams, but you are new additions to the class, which is normally ensured so there are no leftovers, Iruka said before he closed his folder and walked over to the door to open it. You all can come in now, he said as one by one the sensei walked into the room. From now on these are your sensei and they will continue to train you and ensure you grow stronger under their teachings. Work well to get along and work well as a team from this point on, he said before signaling for the Jonin to go on. Naruto looked around for his sensei before he saw a brown-haired woman walk up to him. Nice to finally meet you, Naruto. I am Izumi Uchiha and from now on I will be your sensei, she said as Naruto stood up with a smile. It is very nice to meet you, he said as he shook her hand before Mabui did the same. Well, we still need to introduce ourselves more, so meet me at the front gate of the Uchiha district. I'll be waiting for you so we can go to where I plan to talk with you two at, she said before disappearing in a puff of smoke, showing that she was a clone. Best not to keep her waiting, Naruto-sama, Mabui said as Naruto nodded and they headed to leave the class, waving to their friends as they left with the sensei ahead of them. It must boil your blood to have an Uchiha as your sensei, doesn't it, Senju? Sasuke asked with a smirk, making Naruto sigh and look over at him. Actually no, it doesn't, as I don't have an unrealistic hatred towards the Uchiha like you seem to have for me and my clan. I look forward to what Mabui and I can learn from her, Naruto said, ignoring Sasuke's slight glare and huff before he and Mabui left the classroom and quickly made their way towards the Uchiha district. Ah, about time you all showed up, as here I thought I'd have to fail you, Izumi teased before she stood up from a nearby bench and threw away some dango sticks she had been snacking on while waiting for them. Sorry, someone stopped us just before we left. So where exactly are we going? Mabui asked as they followed Izumi through the Uchiha district. A friend's house where I will ask my questions about you. Plus my friend wants to meet you, Naruto. She's an old friend of your mother's, she said, making Naruto raise an eyebrow before the wink from her made him realize she probably meant his birth mother. Mabui and he looked around the district as Izumi led them through it, and for the most part there were some of stairs, mainly directed at him. Do most Uchiha have an unnecessary dislike towards Senju? He thought with a sigh before Izumi stopped in front of a large house. Come on. No use standing around and keeping her waiting, she said as she opened the front door and led them inside. Makoto. I'm back and I brought Naruto and his girlfriend. Izumi yelled out with a smirk which only grew as a blush grew on both his and Mabui's faces, but before they could retort a voice interrupted them. Oh good. It's about time I see my best friend's child, another woman's voice said before the source stepped out into the entryway. The woman had fair skin with long straight black hair that had bangs on either side of her face to frame her cheeks and black eyes. She wore a simple dark purple blouse with a reddish purple skirt and a pair of black calf-high socks. Oh my, Makoto, if the name Izumi said earlier was anything to go by, said as she looked him over, you look so much like your father, but it is so nice to meet you, Naruto, she said with a smile as she grabbed his hand and held it with hers. It's nice to meet you as well, he said, unsure of what was all happening before Makoto giggled a bit and let go of his hands. Sorry, this must be odd to you. Please come in so I can explain and your sensei here can do the standard introduction, Makoto said before Izumi walked past her. Well, come on my little genin, we can talk in the living room and ask the usual, get to know you, questions, Izumi said as Naruto and Mabui followed Makoto into the main living room. Please sit down. It is so nice to see you after so long, Makoto said with a warm smile before the woman sat down next to Izumi, slapping her hand as their sensei tried to reach for the cookies on the table. So you know my mom, like my birth mom? Naruto asked as the subject of his real mom was an odd one since his current mom always came to mind when he thought of the word, mom. He didn't doubt his birth mom loved and cared for him while he grew inside her, but Tsunade was all he knew in terms of a mother. Yes, she was my best friend and rival. We even were on the same team as Genin. We butted heads, but she was always someone you could rely on, Makoto said before moving the plate closer to the two of them and slapping Izumi's hand away again. Ow, fine Makoto, I get it, no cookies, Izumi grumbled before she cleared her throat. How about we get on to the team introductions? You like names, likes, dislikes, and dreams for the future. I'll start, Izumi said before she motioned to herself. My name is Izumi Uchiha. I like dango, my family, relaxing in the sun, sweets, and a certain someone that had to leave on a long-term mission. I dislike people who bear grudges, disregard their teammates, and traitors. As for my dreams for the future, I dream of having a family with the man I love and retiring peacefully when he returns, she said with a warm smile before motioning to Mabui. Ladies first, you next, she added before Mabui smiled and nodded. I'm Mabui. I like standing beside Naruto-sama, training, getting stronger, and repaying my debt. I dislike people who insult Naruto-sama, rude people in general, perverts, and dislike me just because I am from Kumo. My dream is to become a strong kunoichi able to bring pride to Kumo and, she said before trailing off and her eyes flickering towards Naruto for a second before blushing, making both Izumi and Makoto giggle. Okay, we get it. How about you, Naruto? Izumi said as teasing and getting the two of them closer was going to be really fun. Well, I am Naruto Senju. I like training, spending time with my friends and family, and working to become a better medic and swordsman. I dislike rude people, perverts, traitors, and people who leer at my mom. As for dreams, I want to be a great medic and a great swordsman, make a name for myself, and maybe even have a family of my own, he said with a smile, not noticing the darker blush and smile on Mabui's face as she looked down at the ground. Very nice goals, the both of you. Now normally I'd give you a final test, but honestly I don't feel you need it, she said as she stood up and smiled at the two of them. The final test is mainly to see if you can work alongside those picked to be on your team, but you've trained along Mabui for several years, so I doubt I have to worry, Izumi said as she had already gotten the okay to skip over the test by the Hokage if she felt like it. Plus I think you can listen to me well enough, she added as Naruto and Mabui nodded. We look forward to working with you, sensei, Mabui said with a bow before Naruto did the same. Good, because we start missions tomorrow, so go share the news with Tsunade and enjoy the rest of the day as tomorrow we'll be going on a lot of missions, she said as the two of them nodded. I'm sorry that we have to leave. I'd like to talk to you more about my birth parents and stuff, Naruto said as Makoto nodded with a smile. That would be wonderful. Feel free to drop by whenever you want. My doors are always open to you and Mabui, Makoto said before picking up the plate of cookies. Please take some for the road, she insisted with a smile as Naruto and Mabui took a cookie before leaving to head back to their home. I swear he's as energetic and bright as Kushina, Makoto said with a nostalgic smile from remembering her best friend. And I can tell he'll be surprising just like how she was from your stories of Kushina, Izumi said as she quickly snatched a cookie off the table while Makoto rolled her eyes but smiled, hoping her words to be true. Our missions tomorrow most likely will be D rank, but even then I find myself looking forward to them a bit, Naruto said as he held his hands behind his head with a smile. Same here, as Lady Tsunade did say we all have to start at the beginning before getting to the more serious missions, Mabui said before they saw Shizune walking down the street, who in turn noticed them. Oh hi, you two, already done with your first meeting with your sensei? Shizune asked, excited to see how it went for them both. Izumi-sensei was very nice and friendly. We met at a woman named Makoto's house and got to know each other, Mabui said with a smile as Shizune nodded, already having known that Izumi planned to introduce Naruto to Kushina's old friend. Makoto is a very sweet woman and I'm glad you get along with your sensei so far. Your mother is probably excitedly waiting for you to return, Shizune said to Naruto before she looked at the time with a frown. What's wrong, Shizune? Naruto asked as Shizune sighed. I have to rush to the store for something and need some help. Mabui, can I maybe get your help? Shizune asked, trying to send Mabui a signal, which the girl thankfully got as her eyes widened and she nodded. Of course. I don't mind helping you at all, Mabui said before looking over to Naruto. I am sorry, Naruto-sama, but are you okay with going home without me? She asked as he nodded. Sure, but I can come along if you need the extra help, he offered before both of them waved him off. We should be able to handle it. Thank you though for offering. For now you should head back home and share the good news with your mom, Shizune said while he just shrugged his shoulders and watched as the two of them walked off, leaving him alone to head home. Though, as he headed home he was distracted as, while passing by a nearby training grounds, he heard the sounds of something hitting into wood rapidly. Curiosity got the better of him as he could hear the whoosh of things flying through the air before hitting what he figured to be a wooden target and grew interested in how someone could be throwing weapons so fast. As he peeked into the training grounds from the leverage point of a high-up branch on a tree, he was surprised by the amount of wooden targets, all covered with metal weapons embedded into them. And even more surprised by the variety of weapons in the targets, as well as the fact they were still being thrown by someone. The person was a girl with soft brown hair done up in two buns with a pair of brown eyes that he could see were narrowed in concentration. She wore a white long-sleeved high-collared white blouse with maroon edges and a pair of maroon puffy hakama-styled pants and a pair of black fingerless gloves and black sandals to finish it off. Her body, not that Naruto was looking, was lean, her chest not too big but not small, being around a mid-B cup, with a rather toned and bubbly rear. Though, before he could watch more, he quickly had to leap back to avoid a shuriken thrown from his right and a figure appeared behind him. What are you doing here, spying on my teammate? A male voice asked as Naruto turned around to face a rather annoyed-looking Hyuga who had his Byakugan activated. Wasn't exactly spying, just curious what the noise was since I could hear it from the nearby street, Naruto said as the Hyuga didn't look convinced. Team 9 has this training field booked, so best to go on your way before you get in trouble, the man said before they heard someone sigh. Neji, no need to be so serious like that. He was just interested and came to check. The girl said as she stepped out from the bushes, having heard her teammate rush off. Her sentence stopped midway as her eyes widened as she looked at Naruto. Why, you're Naruto Senju, son of Tsunade Senju. Right? The girl asked as Naruto nodded and stood up, dusting off his pants. Yeah. Sorry about peeking in on you. I just heard so many weapons hitting targets and was curious to see it, Naruto said before the girl grabbed his hands and looked up at him with stars in her eyes. Oh my god, I can't believe it's really you. When I heard you and your mother came into the village a few days ago, I wanted to find you, but my sensei forbid me from doing it. I have to say your mother is my role model and an amazing person, the girl said excitedly, making Naruto chuckle as he had expected something like this, though was surprised by how less weird he figured it would be. Yeah, my mom is pretty great. It is nice to meet you, he said before trailing off as he hadn't gotten her name yet. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Tenten and this is my teammate Neji, she said, adding in the last part offhandedly. Say, I heard you passed the marksmanship test using Senbon. No one has gotten a pass using Senbon since, well, me, she said with a proud smile while Naruto nodded. My mom and older sister of sorts taught me how to use them since being trained as a medic. Learning how to disable opponents with the pinpoint hitting of nerves is a handy skill, he said as Tenten nodded understandingly. Say, if you have some time, do you want to show me some of your skills with Senbon? I'm training to be a weapon expert and am always interested in seeing more ways of using them, Tenten said as she mainly used Senbon to make her opponents waste time blocking them so she can get the stronger weapons of hers ready to throw. Sure. I guess I have a few minutes to spare, he said as he knew they were planning something, given by how odd Shizune was acting, so he might as well give them time to prepare. Great. Thank you so much for this. It's not every day I get to meet the son of my hero and see their skills, Tenten said before she started to drag him into the training ground, a disgruntled Neji following behind them. Quick question, why is my mom your hero? I mean, I know she's a Sannin and everything, but I'm just curious, Naruto asked as they entered the clearing where he saw two large storage scrolls unrolled on the ground where Tenten had been standing previously before Neji had found him. Your mom is just amazing. She is the epitome of what Kunoichi should be. Strong, smart, beautiful, and independent while also being able to work with a team. I've looked up to her since I was a kid, even tried my hand at medical ninjutsu and getting stronger like her, but being a medic just wasn't for me, Tenten said, ending with a frown before she shook it off. It was then that I discovered seals and fuinjutsu and decided to work from there, where I then found out my knack for weapons and decided to become a weapon master, she said before Naruto smiled and nodded. Being a medic isn't for everyone, but I'm glad you found something you can work towards, as by the amount of bullseyes around us I can see you are doing well with your goal, Naruto said, as with literally every target around them the bullseyes were the only part that the weapons were in. Thanks, that means a lot, Tenten said, quickly turning around to hide the blush she got from the son of her hero complimenting her. Say, Senju, is it true you have a girl from Kumo on your team? Neji asked as Naruto nodded. You can call me Naruto, and yes, Mabui is originally from Kumo but began living with me and my mom after I helped her. She is from Kumo but has permission to be here and be a ninja for Konoha as well, Naruto said, having a reply ready as he figured many Hyuga wouldn't be too happy about Mabui, though he understood why. After all, the elders of Kumo who still had the last Raikage's mindset and greed had brought a lot of pain to the Hyuga clan, but he had hoped that the return of the body as well as a formal apology from Kumo would help heal things. Whatever, just tell her to stay away from Lady Hinata, Neji growled out before walking away to a nearby tree, still watching but deciding to give them a bit of space. So, Naruto said as he pulled out some Senbon, want me to show you some places Senbon can be used to knock someone out instantly? He asked as Tenten nodded excitedly, and he spent the next few minutes showing Tenten some tricks he learned to do with Senbon. All in all, he found showing his skills to Tenten interesting and the girl very friendly. Especially since with him just getting settled in Konoha he didn't know all that many people his age, so getting to know the weapon user was fun. I'm sorry, but I really must go, my mom is expecting me home. Well, she was expecting me immediately after I got done with meeting my sensei for the first time, Naruto said as Tenten frowned but understood. Well, don't want to keep your mom waiting. But, maybe if it's okay, can we hang out more some other time? Tenten asked with a smile. It's just nice to see someone with a thing for weapons as well. Plus I'd like to see more of what you can do as well as that sword you are carrying around, she added as he chuckled and nodded. Of course Tenten, I'll see you around, he said before he quickly headed off, leaving a smiling Tenten behind. Seriously Tenten, why are you getting friendly with him considering his teammate? Neji said, making Tenten sigh. Neji, I know your feelings towards Kumo, but she isn't Kumo and Naruto isn't either. Plus he is the son of my hero and is actually a cool guy. I mean, did you see his skills with Senbon? She said, motioning to the straw training dummy that was basically a pin cushion due to the amount of her Senbon the two of them had thrown into it. Mainly him though. Plus his sword, I can just feel it's amazing. Don't judge him before you actually get to know him, she added before Neji grunted and walked off, basically meaning he'll try but he won't like it. Thankfully for Naruto, as he got home, it seemed Shizune and Mabui were still out. Mom, I'm home, he called out as he entered the house to see his mom waiting in the living room. About time you got home. Come here, tell me how it went, she said with a smile, patting the seat next to her as she set her tea down. Izumi was nice, she took us to meet a friend of my birth mom's named Makoto. We did the standard introduction and she sent us home after deciding we didn't need a test. We start missions tomorrow, he said excitedly with a smile, making his mom chuckle as she ruffled his hair. Glad you're excited, Naruto, but please, when you get to higher missions, be careful. For me, Tsunade said as she had already told her son of the story of how she lost her fiancé, Shizune's uncle, and her brother. She always stressed to be vigilant when on missions when she was training him the years before and still wanted to. I know, Mom, I'll be careful and Mabui will always be watching my back. I promise I'll do my best not to make you worry, he said, smiling warmly as his mom draped her arm over his shoulder and pulled him in for a hug and kissed the top of his head. That's my boy. So did Mabui go off with Shizune? She asked before he rested his head on her shoulder. Yeah, she went to buy stuff for the party, he said, making Tsunade groan. I swear Shizune is terrible at hiding things like that. At least try and act surprised for her, Tsunade said, making Naruto chuckle and nod. I know, Mom, I have practice from all the times she let the birthday parties slip, Naruto joked before the two of them laughed. You know I'm proud of you, right? And that I'll only continue to be more and more proud of you, Tsunade said as she pet her son's head. Of course, Mom, and I'll do everything I can to keep it that way. I want to make a name for myself, he said, Tsunade understanding since he was in her shadow due to her last name. Just be safe, that is all I care about. I can't lose you, she said, since from when he got his headband her old fears had been rising up a bit more, even though she trusted him and believed he was skilled enough to stay safe. Old habits, like worrying, die hard. But she still had faith. With all his training and abilities, he'd be okay. For now she'd enjoy the peacefulness of D-rank missions before seeing how quickly he makes his way out of her shadow. And knowing him, it probably won't be long.